Marta Chin sat quietly in seat 14C. She was Major Phoenix Chin, a decorated F-16 pilot with 150 combat missions. But today she was just another passenger. No one knew the woman in the Navy blazer was a war hero. When crisis struck at 35,000 feet, her secret would change everything. The engines of Flight 447, a Boeing 737, hummed quietly on a routine 3-hour cruise from Denver to Phoenix. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Marta looked like any business traveler, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, seeking a peaceful, anonymous flight to visit her sister. A flight attendant, Jenny, offered her water. Marta politely refused small talk. Mr. Thompson, a talkative salesman next to her, tried to engage. Marta vaguely mentioned she did government work, describing it as pretty boring stuff to end the conversation. She was tired of the stares and endless questions that came whenever people discovered her military service, tired of explaining combat missions or being asked if she had ever killed anyone. For once, she just wanted to blend in. The truth was, Marta Chin wasn't just any government worker. Her call sign, Phoenix, had been earned after she survived a direct missile hit over enemy territory, managed to keep her severely damaged F-16 flying for 40 minutes with half her systems destroyed, and brought it back to base for an impossible, safe landing. In the cockpit, Captain David Wright and First Officer Mike Torres monitored their instruments. The weather looked perfect. Wright was adjusting his headset when a crackling voice came through the radio from Denver Center. They were tracking an unidentified aircraft somewhere in their vicinity and instructed Flight 447 to maintain its current heading and altitude. Wright and Torres exchanged concerned glances. Wright decided against informing the passengers, not wanting to worry them unnecessarily. High above, 2 F-16 Fighting Falcons streaked across the sky. The lead, Captain Jake Viper Harrison, scanned his radar. His wingman, Lieutenant Alex Hawk Rodriguez, reported a contact, bearing 240 and climbing through 30,000 feet. Viper confirmed the target and informed Denver Center they were moving to intercept. The F-16s maneuvered sharply, the G-forces pressing the pilots deep into their seats. Back aboard the commercial flight, Marta noticed the plane make a subtle course correction. Her finely tuned senses immediately picked up the slight change in engine tone and attitude. It wasn't a weather avoidance maneuver, it was a military-directed course adjustment. Her pulse quickened, but her expression remained neutral. Denver Center radioed Flight 447, telling them to deviate 10 to the right due to military operations. Wright acknowledged. He could hear military communications bleeding through on emergency channels, confirming his suspicion that something serious was happening. The unknown aircraft finally came into clear view of the F-16s. It was a small, single-engine Cessna, unresponsive to radio calls, its transponder off, flying erratically. Viper flew close enough to peer into the cockpit. He radioed Denver Center. The pilot was slumped over the controls, apparently unconscious or incapacitated. It was a medical emergency. The unmanned aircraft was now flying on autopilot or simply drifting. They needed to guide it away from civilian air traffic immediately. Denver Center told Viper that a commercial airliner, Flight 447, needed to be escorted. Viper directed Hawk to take escort position while he remained with the Cessna. Through her window, Marta spotted the dark speck rapidly growing larger, identifying it instantly as an F-16 fighter jet. She watched the military pilots smoothly take up a protective escort position off their left wing. Other passengers began noticing the jet, and panic started to spread. Flight attendant Jenny came over the intercom, asking everyone to remain calm, explaining the military aircraft was a simple safety precaution. Mr. Thompson turned to Marta, worried, asking if she'd ever seen anything like it. Marta lied smoothly, saying she hadn't, though the truth was she had been on both sides of this exact situation many times. In the cockpit, Wright adjusted his headset, listening more carefully to the fighter pilot's transmissions. The situation with the unconscious pilot in the Cessna was becoming critical. The small aircraft had entered a shallow dive and was heading directly toward the outskirts of Phoenix. Viper flew alongside, frantically trying different frequencies. He reported to Denver Center. The aircraft was descending through 28,000 feet and heading directly toward populated areas. He requested immediate guidance on rules of engagement. Denver Center cleared Viper to use any means necessary to prevent the aircraft from reaching populated areas. But first, they wanted to try something else. The controller revealed they had information indicating there was a qualified pilot aboard Flight 447. They planned to patch this pilot through to Viper. On the commercial aircraft, Jenny approached Marta's seat. "You need to come to the front of the plane. The pilots want to speak with you." Marta was confused. Jenny explained that air traffic control had requested Marta by name. Marta unbuckled her seatbelt, acutely aware that every passenger was staring. When Marta entered the cockpit, Captain Wright asked directly if she was a pilot. She confirmed, then asked how air traffic control knew. Wright admitted he had no idea, but Denver Center wanted her to communicate directly with the military pilots. He handed her a headset. Marta reluctantly accepted it, knowing her anonymity was about to be destroyed. She put on the headset and identified herself simply as the passenger from Flight 447. Denver Center immediately asked her to identify herself to the fighter pilot using her military call sign. Marta realized she was at a crossroads. Lives were at stake. She couldn't remain silent. After a long pause, she sighed and spoke into the microphone. "Phoenix, this is Phoenix." The moment Viper heard the call sign, his eyes widened in shock. He asked for confirmation. "Phoenix, as in Major Marta Phoenix Chin?" When Marta reluctantly confirmed, Viper's voice filled with respect. He identified himself as Captain Harrison, Viper, and told her he had flown with her squadron, mentioning she had saved his wingman's life over Kandahar. He explained the current crisis, the unconscious pilot in the Cessna heading for downtown Phoenix, desperately needing her expertise. Marta looked out through the cockpit windows and spotted the small aircraft. Her years of training kicked in. She spoke with a calm, professional tone. She confirmed the Cessna 172's altitude and steady descent. They were running out of time and options. Marta formulated a plan that required precise coordinations and exceptional flying skills. She explained to Viper they needed to force the Cessna to change course without causing it to crash or break apart. This required the F-16 to use its wake turbulence to gently push the smaller aircraft away from populated areas toward open desert. The maneuver was incredibly dangerous, but it was their only option short of shooting down the aircraft. As Marta outlined the complex procedure, Wright and Torres listened in amazement, realizing they had a genuine military hero in their cockpit. Viper acknowledged Phoenix's plan, having complete confidence in her tactical knowledge. Marta began providing tactical guidance to Viper. She warned him about the precise positioning required to use wake turbulence effectively. The margin for error was incredibly small. The F-16 pilot followed her instructions precisely, trusting completely in her expertise. The wake turbulence from Viper's F-16 began affecting the Cessna's flight path, gradually pushing it away from populated areas. Marta carefully monitored the small aircraft's movement, providing real-time corrections to Viper's approach angle and airspeed. After several tense minutes, the Cessna was successfully diverted to a heading that would take it over uninhabited land. With the immediate threat to civilian lives eliminated, Denver Center began coordinating emergency services to the projected crash site. Viper came back on the radio with a request. He asked Denver Center for permission to perform an aerial salute to honor Phoenix's crucial assistance in saving lives. This was a rare military tradition, but Viper felt it was warranted. Denver Center approved. Hawk was permitted to break escort and join Viper. Inside Flight 447, Captain Wright announced that the passengers were about to witness something very special. The military pilots had requested to perform an aerial salute in honor of a fellow service member who had provided critical assistance. The passengers pressed their faces to the windows as the two F-16s moved into perfect formation and executed a flawless, breathtaking aerial salute, a precision flyby honoring one of the Air Force's most respected combat veterans. As the salute concluded, Captain Wright made the announcement that stunned everyone aboard. The aerial salute had been performed in honor of Major Marta Phoenix Chin, one of the most decorated fighter pilots in United States Air Force history, who was traveling as a passenger on their flight. The transformation in the cabin was immediate. Passengers realized the woman in seat 14C, who had seemed like any other business traveler, was a genuine war hero. Mr. Thompson looked at Marta with deep respect. Lisa Martinez realized this woman had faced pressures that made a fussy toddler seem like nothing. As Marta returned to her seat, the entire cabin watched her with awe and curiosity. A few people asked for autographs, which Marta politely declined. The remainder of the flight passed in a completely different atmosphere. Her cover was blown. There was no going back to being just another passenger. When Flight 447 finally landed in Phoenix, word of the incident had already spread through news networks. Cameras and reporters were waiting at the gate. Airport security had to escort Marta through the terminal to protect her from the growing crowd. She reflected on the irony. She had wanted a quiet, anonymous trip. Instead, she had directed a complex rescue operation from 35,000 feet and received an unprecedented aerial salute. Her attempt to blend in was destroyed, but she had saved lives once again. The incident became national news. Military aviation experts praised the innovative rescue technique. Marta found herself reluctantly thrust back into the spotlight. Most importantly, the unconscious pilot of the Cessna survived his emergency landing in the desert and made a full recovery. Marta's quick thinking and expertise had prevented a catastrophe and saved a fellow aviator. The story of the passenger in Seat 14C became a legend in military aviation circles, retold as an example of how skills learned in combat could be applied to save lives in unexpected circumstances. For Marta Chin, it was just another day of service to her country, even when she was trying to take a day off.